So prospective candidates or professionals on the call today, you're welcome, and we take pleasure to welcome you on this very important webinar. Today we shall be discussing the dynamics behind choosing a supervisor. So this normally happens at the early stages of your application or the early stages of your decision making. And I'm going to be sharing with you some thoughts regarding this journey, partly from my own experiences, but also I will also pick some knowledge I've picked from 2 books I was reading before coming to this meeting. There is a book which is titled How to Get a PhD, a handbook for graduate students and their supervisors. That book is very important and it's very interesting. If you are at this stage of making a decision of enrolling for a PhD or a master's by research project, then it's important, and I highly recommend that you read that book such that you have an idea about the journey ahead of you. So let's start the journey. Not all graduate programs, and when I say graduate programs, I mean master's and PhD. Not all graduate programs require you to identify a supervisor before submitting your application. Not all of them. However, some of them do require you to identify a supervisor and have a meeting with them, agree with them on what you're going to do, agree with them on the research topic that you're proposing to work on before you submit your application. Actually, for me, I didn't know how important that was. But if you find a scholarship which says that, or if you find an application website which says, please identify a supervisor before you go on with submission, do not jump that criteria. Do not underlook it. Do not think it is something light. It's a very important stage. More so if your work is going to involve research, and if your work is going to involve you working with somebody on a particular methodology or a particular technique or a particular topic. Actually, sometimes it may say it's optional, but by them mere mentioning that it's optional, that is something that should concern you. And actually, if I was you, even when they have said it is optional, I would step back and identify whom you want to work with. I'm going to share with you how. Now, sometimes on the website, they may be silent about it, but as you're applying in the system, they ask you that, have you identified a supervisor? Then they ask you the responses, yes or no. And when you say yes, a pop-up window says, can you name the person you have been in touch with? That should signal to you that they want you to identify a supervisor, a potential supervisor to work with. Now, in the US and Canada, at the point of application, they may not emphasize that, but I'm going to emphasize shortly why you should identify one. Now, if you are in the system and they are saying, did you identify a supervisor before, in brackets optional? Actually, for me, I advise you step back and identify one. And if possible, have a meeting with them and let them know you are going to apply, and let them know you're proposing their name in the system, and let them know if you are successful with the scholarship and the admission, you would like to work with them. That is extremely important. I think at this stage I should tell you why it is very important for you to have a conversation with them and for you to brief them that you are applying. Now, for graduate applications, once you click submit, they go to the postgraduate admissions office. That's the first place your submission is go. After they have been received and the deadline is passed, they are all downloaded and sent to different departments for technical review. And the departments will write a report about each of these candidates. For example, they may receive 200 applicants, and one department may receive over 40, but the department is taking on 8 in that particular year. So the department will be requested to recommend 8 for admission. And so they will have to screen out of the 40 who have applied to that department for them to retain the 8. Now, during the technical review, the person who receives them is called a postgraduate education coordinator. That person has an idea about what the professors or lecturers in the department are researching on. So whatever topic you are proposing, the postgraduate postgraduate education coordinator will be able to consult with those supervisors if they are happy to take on you. Now, the advantage, if you already had a chat with that professor or with that potential supervisor, by the time he or she is contacted, that person will say, yes, I am happy to take on that student. By the way, during the chat and during the conversation, you will be able to share with them what you're proposing to work on, and they will actually suggest areas for improvement or areas to focus on. That is excellent. When they tell you, I propose we do this, you do this, that is like a tall order. So quickly pick it up and agree to it such that you can modify the concept or modify the idea. That is very important. And that's why you need to contact them or chat with them and have a call with them before you submit your application. Even when they are silent about it, I'm now talking about master's level now. Even when they are silent about the issue of the supervisor, but you are going for a research-oriented project, in your motivational letter, when they ask, why have you applied for this program? Part of the reason you should state in your submission is that you have identified a supervisor X and Y who is researching on this and the other, and you would like to work with them if given a chance to, if admitted into the program. Please, in your motivational letter, make sure you state that. Now, if you're wondering how we write motivational letters, on our YouTube channel, we have a number of resources on that. We have 2 videos on how to write motivational letters. Feel free to go and check them out. They are open access. So that is how important this supervisor is. At this juncture, I want to mention to you that should you have a conversation with this supervisor, and this supervisor says, I'm happy to supervise you, you know from the bottom of your heart that you are 50% into that program. Once they accept, you know you are 50% into that program. Sometimes they may not accept, and they will tell you why they have not accepted. Number one, it could be that they are not allowed to take on students at that time. What do I mean? Except in a number of African countries where a supervisor can take on up to 20 students in one academic year. Some countries, specifically in the UK, universities have tight rules on how many students this supervisor should take on in a year. And they allow him or her to take on more students depending on how the ones he has been moving with are progressing. If they see that the other ones are not being given enough time, they don't allow him or her to take on new students. So the supervisor can tell you, I'm not taking on because I'm not allowed to do it now. And please, if they say so, please don't feel bad. Please understand. They may also tell you that, please, I'm not taking on because I don't have money to support a PhD or a master's student now. If they tell you so, please understand them. It may be that they actually retired, but they are just there. I used not to understand the meaning of the word emeritus professor. I didn't understand the meaning until I contacted, I think, 2 of them, and they told me, well, I was there, I was taking on students, but I stopped. I'm no longer taking on students. I just do some bit of supportive role, but I'm no longer taking on PhD students. Actually, in some of them on their staff short bios, they clearly specify either they are accepting PhD and master students or they are not. Please read that clearly and be cautious about it. Now, having given that background, what should you consider when you are choosing this particular person called a supervisor? What should you consider when you are choosing one? That is the main topic for today's conversation. Now, the most driving point, which for me I want to sincerely front on, is you as the candidate or the student. You have a very big role to play. Why do I say so? You as a student have an idea where you are heading. And so you're looking for somebody who can hold your hand and take you to this particular place or destination. Now, if you don't know where you're heading, if you are not clear on your career vision and career projection, you're likely to make mistakes. Now, I want you to use the chat. Just text in the chat if for you are clear on where you want to go regarding your career life. That for me, I know I am going to destination X. Just use the chat. You say yes or no. If you are clear that for me, this is 2024, but in 2034, I want to arrive in place X, or I want to be able to do X, because the specificity drives the rest. Yeah, I can see some are saying yes, and many of them have said yes, actually. Great. Now, the specificity is what drives the rest of the things. Once you're clear that for me, I want to go in the other corner, so you look for somebody who will take you in that corner or who can hold your hand to that corner. Now, what do I mean? What I mean by saying you being able to know where you're heading, I mean, which competence do you want to build? What expertise do you want to build? If you say, I want to build expertise in machine learning and agroforestry, or something like that, once you're very clear that I want to grasp competence in machine learning and agroforestry, now that is the starting point. You are clear on the expertise you want to grow. So the next thing which follows is, who are these supervisors in this space called agroforest, who are in the space of machine learning and agroforestry. So I'm going to show you how you can be able to identify, one. I was reading some work here. I want to show you how you can identify this particular supervisor who is doing work in machine learning and agroforestry, because you're very clear on where you're heading. So the first thing you're doing is that you're coming to Google Scholar and you're putting the word machine learning and agroforestry. Agroforestry. I can just even just click enter there. And I can say, okay, there are many people who are doing some work in this line. And I'm going to say, I want the recent studies, meaning that I want very recent papers which have been published recently, maybe either 1 month ago, 2 months ago. Like for me, I have stated that I want papers which have been published just within this year. And then number of points here. So I come here and I open the first paper. This one has dodged it open. Let me try this. This one has opened. Okay, so if you want to identify who the right person is, always, because many people will be on the list, but always the last person, more so when there is this word and, always the last person here is the supervisor of this person. So if you are identifying who the person to work with on machine learning and agroforestry, this is a guy to contact, this one here. So you say, okay, this is called Philip, and his affiliation is number 3. So I come here and say, okay, which is number 3? Number 3 is called Dallas Farmer Research Center, USDA, and then you know which state or which country they are based. So this is now in the US. You can list this somewhere and say, okay, this is one step forward. So this is a guy I can contact to supervise me. So the point I'm making there is that you need to be clear on which expertise you want to grow. That's bullet number 1. Bullet number 2, it is important for you to know which university these supervisors or these potential supervisors are working in. Which university are they affiliated with? Because for me, Dr. Danny Musinguzi helped me to know that there is power in the affiliations of these supervisors. However, I should mention that the expertise of this supervisor, the competence of this supervisor is more important than their affiliation. So for me, I have begun by saying, what are they good at? And actually, we can say, okay, actually, let me first of all look at the expertise of this guy. How many papers has this person published? So I come back here, I put here, and I put his name there, and I click enter. I'm able to see, I want to see how many papers he has appeared on this very year alone. So I can see there's a paper here. I can see there is a paper here. He has appeared here. I can see there's a paper here. He has appeared on it here. I can see his name is again here. He has appeared on this paper. There is another paper here. This is within the same year. This one here. Here, no. Here, I don't see him. Here, I don't see him. I can stubbornly try to remove this. And I just click enter and see. Again, within the first year, I can see a lot of papers. So there's this one here. There is this one where he's appearing here. He's also appearing here. Same here, same here, same here. So same here. Now, this alone should tell you this guy is a researcher. This guy is an active researcher. You can see it here. So this shows you this guy is an active researcher, meaning he's supervising students, but also he's also involved into research. And this is a person you would like to work with. So the expertise of somebody, where are they publishing? That's another point I want you to think about. Because when you're publishing your research work, the journals you publish matter a lot. The journals, the scientific journals where you publish matter a lot. So it's good to double check where this guy is publishing. Why is that important? Because he's likely to publish with you in those areas. I can see a hand from George. George, you want to ask a question?
Yes, just something small. The screen is not I don't know whether it is my network or what. We are not seeing how you're navigating in your screen.
Really?
Yeah, some messages in the chat.
Oh, not seeing the screen. Sorry. Sorry about that. Sorry about that. And I was very busy showing. I was very busy showing. Are you able to see my screen now?
That is now perfect.
Sorry, I was very busy demonstrating this person. Now, let me begin afresh. Let me begin afresh how I reached here. Remember, I began by saying, for me, I want to build competence in machine learning and agroforestry. So I came here and I clicked that word there, machine learning and agroforestry. And once I put this here, I'm able to see different studies that have been published on this. So I just opened this particular paper here, and I was able to see the first author and then the last author. Now, the last author is always the supervisor of the first author. So always, if you're looking for a supervisor, the person to always check out for is this last person here. However, most likely when there is a word "and," if there is no word "and," it may not be this one, but in most cases, they will always be here. So we now look at this guy called Phillips and say this guy here is a potential guy I may want to work with. The second question to ask is, where is he affiliated? So when you check on number 3 here, the superscript here, you come here and you read number 3, you're able to know where he's affiliated. So this guy is in the US. But I'm like, okay, before I make a decision to choose this guy, let me read about him. So I get his name here. I come back here and I remove this and I paste it here. There's a word Philip here. So I paste it there. And when I paste it there, I'm able to say I want only the papers of 2024. I want to see how active this guy is. So I can see a paper here where he has published in 2024. There is another, he is appearing here as well, 2024. He's appearing here. 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 The more he's appearing, the more active he is regarding research. Remember, this is just the front part. You can even say the second page and see whether he's still appearing. He's still appearing here. He's still appearing here, and so forth and so forth. So that makes this guy a potential guy you'd like to work with. So one thing you have done is which area of expertise do I want to grow, and who are the people in this space. The second thing that you are doing is their affiliation, because you may have preference and say, me, I want to go and study in the UK, I want to go and study in South Africa, I want to go and study in Australia. So their affiliation matters a lot. Now, the other interesting thing for you to understand is if you got this name and put it in maybe in Open Google, you are able to know whether he has any upcoming scientific presentations or conference presentations. It would be great. It would be great for you to listen to him speak, but also if he has ever recorded any teaching or any tutorials, it would be nice for you to hear him explain concepts, and it can help you to know how knowledgeable he is and how good he is regarding that field. Actually, you can also stubbornly download 7 or 10 papers which he recently co-authored, most of the ones which he published. And then you are able to see how they write. The other interesting thing is for you to look out for a master's dissertation book, because those books are always online. They are always online. You checking out for a master's dissertation book or a PhD thesis, which has a student's name and his name. Then you see how that thesis was structured. The truth is that because this area for machine learning and agroforestry may be new to you, And so you may not understand all the concepts, but how the abstract flows can give you an idea on how thorough he is in reviewing students' work. So you double checking with the dissertations and the thesis which he has supervised is great. The other thing I can also double check about him is he could be an editor in a journal. He could be a reviewer in a journal. Now, in some journals, they mention who edited, who reviewed. And if you find that he is reviewing journal articles and the articles are written well, they are coherent, you are able to understand them. You can say, okay, this guy is going to mold me into a good writer and a good student or a good researcher. The other interesting thing is that when you look at their staff profiles, looking at some of the grants they have won can also help you to know whether this person is able to mobilize resources when you need them, either for a conference or for a publication. That can be another interesting thing to do. But before George mentioned about the issue of my screen, I was emphasizing the issue of where does he publish from. Now, you are going to understand with time that these journals have levels. There are some journals which are very impactful and strong. An example is Nature. Another example is Lancet. So if you find this guy is publishing papers in Nature and Lancet, you are pretty sure that I am likely to also publish my work in high impact journals. By the way, that has implication on life after the master's and life after the PhD. And therefore, you should mind about where to publish your work. Let's just double check this guy and we see where he publishes his work. So we're looking at Philip Owens. Let's try to put Lancet and we see if he has any work in Lancet. So we can see there's a paper here from Nature. There is a paper here from Elsevier. There is a paper here from Nature, but I don't think his name is there. I don't see his name. I don't see his name there. I also don't see his name here. Here he published in books. I think it's a book. This is a book, yeah. But let me see this Nature paper. But this is not Philip Owens. This is C. Owens. This is a different person. This Owens person, let me see. Could be this one, R. Phillips. Let me open this and I see where he published it. Oh, sorry. Because I'm in Uganda, so my library is acting up. It wants me to be back in the UK. It wants me to be back in the UK, so it is blocking me to access some papers. So we can also say, okay, let's see if he's publishing in Nature. Is publishing some work in Nature. So this is the severe. Let's open this and we see. Sorry about that. But for you, I'm sure when you're checking, you should be able to access. But also when I go back to Cambridge, this document should be able to open up. Apologies for that. I wanted to see which journals his students are publishing their work. So where they publish matters a lot. In other words, there is need for background work, background checks before you narrow down on this person. The other thing to do as you're making a decision on who to supervise you is having a conversation with either the current or recently graduated students. Maybe those who recently finished their PhDs or those who are doing postdocs with them. Now, those students are always available online. I mean on LinkedIn and Twitter. So you inbox them and say, hi, I want to have a quick call with you. I'm considering to join your lab with Professor so-and-so, and I want to chat with you about how he works. Now, that one-on-one conversation with a PhD student or a postdoc student or those who recently finished is a very important step before you make a choice or you make a decision. Because let me tell you, This student will tell you this guy is great, this guy is nice, but he has ego, and he will delegate a lot of work to you. He will even bring outside work which is outside your project, and he will lump it on you. He doesn't give you a chance to shine. He doesn't give you a chance to present in conferences. He blocks you from opportunities. He blocks you from learning. He doesn't want to work with you, or he's always blaming. And so you may want to hear some of those sentiments about the personality of this person and how he works. Because by the time somebody graduates with a PhD, they worked with this guy for around 3 to 4 years. And you know, for a PhD, there is consistency, meaning you're meeting this guy like monthly or weekly. So you have a lot of knowledge about how this guy works. Is he thorough? Is he spot on? Does he reply messages? Does he take long? Is he always traveling? Does he take on too much? Does he accept every Tom and Jerry? Does he have any specific areas that he likes researching in? Are there some days are there some specific days that he's good at? For example, for me, when I was making a choice, for me, I was lucky because by the time I made a choice of my current supervisor at Cambridge, he had taken us through a short course at Center for Epidemiological Modeling Analysis, SEMA, at University of Nairobi in Kenya. So he was among the facilitators. So I had an idea how he teaches. And I had worked with him for 6 months. So I saw how quickly he could respond to emails. I saw how quickly he was thorough in reviewing our work. I saw how he was explaining concepts to us in 2021. So by the time I made a decision, I knew a bit about him. But also when I was almost reporting, I chatted with a 4th-year PhD student by that time. Right now, she finished, and she's now working in Sweden at the European Center for Disease Control and Prevention. So I chatted with her and I said, how is this guy? How does he work? How does he? And she told me, he doesn't do WhatsApp, or he doesn't do direct calls. I said, okay, so what does he do? Says this guy does X, by then it was Twitter. He does X, and he does LinkedIn, and he does only and only and only. She emphasized only and only emails. So if you're going to work with him, you need to be on top of the game regarding emails and email correspondences. That was great for me to know. That was very good for me to know. So for me, I would do advice like that, because you need to make a decision after you have done background checks. You don't want to get into a journey with somebody, and 3 months down the road, you're like, this is not the right person I want to work with. Let me tell you, changing a supervisor is not very, very easy, both locally here in Africa, but also abroad. So it's important to think through before you make a decision. For one, let me tell you what I mean by saying changing a supervisor is not easy. When you have been working on something, for example, the master's by research and the PhD by research, which are very common in the UK and Ireland, if you're changing the supervisor, for you to avoid friction with the new supervisor, you may want to change the objectives, actually. If not, this person can follow you up and say, look, I had contributed to conceptualization of these objectives. And if you don't listen to him or her, even when you submit your papers to the journal, they can follow you up and pull your paper down and retract it. Even when it is time for defending your masters, they can fight you and they can follow you up. So that is how tough it is. And that is why you need to pay a lot of attention before you accept to walk the journey with them, because it matters a lot. And for a PhD, it is even worse, because Once you dive into the journey and you're graduating under his lab or under his supervision or her supervision, whenever you'll be introducing yourself in the future, you'll keep saying, my name is Abel Walekhwa. I did a PhD with Professor Andrew Conlan, and then the university can follow on. But you will always mention what you worked on during the PhD, but also who supervised you. Why is that important during the introductions? Because employers and the fellows and colleagues will respect you in consideration with your mentor or supervisor. So how well your mentor is grounded will dictate how much people should respect you or how much people should believe in what you say. Now, that's how important that this issue of a supervisor is. So that for me, that is my comment and that's my advice, and I'm happy to take on any questions regarding this very sensitive point. But somebody will say, sometimes you have to make a decision very fast. For an example is an advertised PhD. You can see a PhD project or studentship or fellowship which has been advertised. Trust me, they will always mention the person you're going to work with. Now, mentioning the name of the person you're going to work with on that project which has been advertised is not by mistake. They are actually giving you a chance to know who the person you're going to work with is. Now, don't just get excited about the project. Okay, this guy is going to work on machine learning and agroforestry. This guy is going to work on climate change and maybe civic rights. Don't get excited about the topic. Get excited more about who I'm going to work with. Because this person can make this topic or this work enjoyable, or this person can make this work look so horrible and you regret why you went in for it. And like I've said, changing a supervisor midway is not easy. You have to apply, you have to explain, you have to narrate the story. But the other thing which is very interesting as a graduate student, as nurse master's and PhD, is your mental health. You don't want to take 6 months stuck on the project because you're in the process of changing the supervisor. It takes time for your change of supervisor to be approved. So you are seated and you're waiting. You can't progress because once they know you have initiated the process of changing the supervisor, they will stop reviewing your work. So you are in suspense waiting until they allocate you somebody. But they can look at somebody who will say, no, I'm not willing to take on that student. Because this supervisor can even go under you and tell the other guy that, you know what, that student is a nightmare. You take her on at your own risk. Take him on at your own risk. That is how serious this matter is. I've told you some supervisor can fight until cows come back home. So please be careful. And I want you to do a lot of due diligence, do background checks, speak to the people they are supervising right now, look at how they write, look at how they publish, where they publish, and look at, are they consistent in the area for machine learning and agroforestry, or they are all over the place? Because if they are all over the place, that brings an aspect on the competence on how well they are grounded in the area you want to learn. But if you see that they are taking on specific approaches and specific methodologies, then they are guys to go for, more so if that is the approach you want to study. But if you find him publishing work on climate change, another time you find him publishing work on the other thing, you're like, this person is all over the place. Which area is he good at? Which area is she good at? You know? So it's very important to see somebody who is consistently publishing work in a specific area or applying specific methodology or approach. More so, if that's the methodology or approach or framework that you want to learn, then you can say, right, this is a guy to go for. This is a person to go and work with. But let me tell you something. You may find a very intelligent person, a very highly published researcher and highly respected researcher. But as long as he's always traveling and not having time to review your work, the person who went with somebody who is not highly exposed, that person will progress even before you. If this person is very rude to you, in that you have a meeting and is harassing you and abusing you and blaming you, the other person who took on another person with a good personality is better than you, because you're going to begin struggling with mental health. And I'm telling you, mental health is real. Mental health is real. More so if you're a graduate student. And it is very much if you're an international student. Because on top of missing home, you are missing company, you're missing your family. And what you want is a bit of somebody whom you can speak to, and that is your supervisor. And if that person is harassing you, is quarreling, is blaming you, is not available to give you feedback for you to progress to the next level, is traveling, and he doesn't reply emails, you may want to really, really think otherwise. Now, some of these things you may not see them on the website. You will hear them from the graduate students. Yeah. The people whom he's supervising will tell you, man, you want to go for him? You come at your own risk. You come if you want to learn ABCD. If you want to learn habits of ABCD from him, please, you're welcome. I wouldn't advise. Now, that is a very candid statement that you want to really hear. So I will stop it at that and give chance to you to make a comment or two, such that we can wrap up this conversation. And feel free to raise up your hand if you want to make a submission regarding this topic of choosing a supervisor to work with. You can just raise up your hand and I'll give you a chance to make a comment or ask a question. Yeah, as members are still thinking through, I just want to again share with you that we normally have weekly webinars every Tuesday, 7 to 8 p.m. East African time. And you've come at a very right time when we are celebrating the wins from last year's application. We're able to have 23 people apply for PhD and scholarships. And we have had 20 scholarships won. 14 for masters and 6 for the PhD. So we are celebrating, and please join us in the celebrations. We shall be celebrating on Friday this week. So you can just reach out and we shall give you where we shall be celebrating from, and where we shall be saying bye-bye to other people who are going to 9 different countries after our mentorship and coaching. Okay, Dr. Danny has something to say. I know he had a class at this time, but Doctor, you're welcome to make a comment and add on.
Thank you, Abel, for that nice presentation. Just to add on what you shared with us, I agree with you that if you can identify a good supervisor and you understand that supervisor, especially his or her writing style, basically you are done with your master's or PhD, basically, because the supervisor really matters a lot. This is the guy who is going to evaluate your work. He's the one who's going to suggest external examiners for those that are going for PhD. So basically, this topic is very, very important, and I feel like crying. We are just 19. I don't know what's happening with our people. This is where really winning fully funded scholarship is when it comes to PhD studies and masters by research. Just to share something, just a resource. I've compiled a list of databases of potential supervisors from 50 universities around the world. These are very good universities. I keep sharing this list on the UG WhatsApp group. Maybe I'll share it again, and maybe you can also include it in your video somewhere. It's a very good resource for people who are starting to look for potential supervisors. Trust me, you just sit on this list within maybe 2 hours. If you're serious, you have a potential supervisor. And Abel, again, what we worked on a few months ago is about how to contact potential supervisors. It's one thing to identify a potential supervisor, but it's another thing trying to contact this person. So we've developed a technique which is called MET, Musinguzi's emailing technique, which has really helped many people get replies from potential supervisors. So again, Abel has been sharing this recording a number of times on those UG WhatsApp groups. And I request you to keep sharing it so that people can know how to contact potential supervisors. Yeah, I think this is a very good good topic. And for guys who are going for PhD studies, I repeat, you need to identify a good supervisor who is well researched, because when you complete your PhD, they will be asking you who supervised you. By mentioning that professor, trust me, you'll be just learning in many opportunities. I've seen this firsthand. So don't take it lightly. Don't allow to be supervised by anyone. Actually, most of the scholarship opportunities, you should be rejecting them. Be selective. Know where you are going. Know what you want. Don't just jump on each and every opportunity that comes. No. Be selective. No, I want to be supervised by a guy who is who is publishing in this area, because the research you will do after your PhD will be determined by the training you have got during your PhD study. And your supervisor plays a key role in this. So it's something that we shouldn't take lightly. It's something very serious. Thanks so much.
Dr. Dan, you have emphasized it very well. But before you go, I want to just your comment, Doctor. I recently was interacting with two students from Uganda here. One of the universities, they have been admitted for the PhD by coursework. And so I asked these two candidates that, who is your supervisor? Then these two, they told me, no, they told us they will allocate us supervisors in second year. What is your comment on that, more so for people who are planning to register for their PhDs in Uganda?
I would say that to me sounds like a disaster. If really you don't know your supervisor by the time you report to the university, no, that's a disaster. Or you are going to go through that PhD program. Yes, you are there just, and when you finish, you can't even publish. You are just there. So I would like to encourage guys, don't just allow things just to happen on you. Okay. And first of all, the problem, I love my country. I'm from Uganda, but there is a very big problem. Graduating with a PhD, it's like landing on the moon or on Mars. So complicated. Yet when you go abroad, I studied with people who completed their PhD studies in 1 year or 2 years. They were done. So in 3 years, they were publishing. They were done already. But in our countries, in Africa, especially in Uganda, graduating with a PhD within 3 years, it's something very rare. So if you can, and hear me, if you can, instead of spending 10 years on a PhD with that funny professor who has not published, if you get the opportunity of going abroad, take that opportunity very serious. Go. Trust me, within 3 years, you will be done. Professors abroad want to graduate PhD students because there is high level of accountability. They cannot keep you in the system for 5 years. You are just there, darling. No, they supervise you. For example, my supervisor, I could give him my work in the morning at 7. By midday, he's looking for me. He said, Dan, come to my office. I'm done reviewing your work. In fact, it has been lying idle on my table. Come and work on the corrections. You see that level of seriousness. But I've had stories of students, they submit their proposal and this supervisor takes about 3 weeks or even 2 months without getting back to you on what you need to correct. When will you graduate? No wonder it takes 10 years and above. So to me, the situation you described, it's really a disaster.
Yeah.
I wouldn't go for that if I were to do a PhD again.
Yeah, and it's happening in Uganda. So thank you so much, actually. Actually, let me share with you a story. Stay with members on the college story. So in 2020, when I was at the verge of looking for a scholarship and what, so I identify a professor who had written on his LinkedIn page, professor of this and this. And so I contacted him by LinkedIn and he replied and he gave me his email address. I sent him my CV and he was very happy. And he told me, you have been given a scholarship to come in my research lab. So please work on the application for admission just for the sake, but I've given you. Now, when I went to my mentor, that's Dr. David Musoke from Makerere School of Public Health, and I was telling him how I am going, how I've been given the scholarship, the first thing he told me, give me the name of this professor. So when I stayed with him, I had gone to him, I wanted a recommendation letter because he was my referee for some time. So I got the name of this person and he put in a Google Scholar. And this person had last published in 2017. We were in 2020. This person had last published in 2017. And Dr. David Musinguzi asked me, Dr. David Musoke asked me, do you want to go under this person's supervision? Are you sure, Abel? If I was you, I would think twice. For me, that was a red signal already. So I had to turn that offer down. That is how I got to understand the power of a supervisor. Later on, I met Dr. Dani Musinguzi in 2021. He actually made a very strong statement that you can do a PhD under a tree as long as you are with an established professor or researcher. I repeat, you can do your PhD and still be very marketable and influential after the PhD as long as you are working with a very established professor or researcher. Dr. Dan, your guidance was spot on. It was very clear. And I know how much and how many doors that has opened for me after taking that advice. So members, thank you so much for coming to our session today. We will stop here and wish you the very best as you navigate the journey of identifying a potential supervisor to work with. It's very important. Very, very important. Give it all the attention it deserves, and good luck with your graduate applications. Bye-bye.